Well, guess what? It's time again for Unstoppable Mindset. And today we get to speak with Dr. Christine Sauer about her life, her experiences, what she's doing, and all sorts of stuff. So I hope that you will enjoy it. I had a conversation with her and found it very inspirational. And now we get to expand on all of that and inspire all of you as well, I hope, and certainly give you some information that will be invaluable. So Dr. Christine, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hello, Michael. And I'm so honored to be on your Unstoppable podcast show because I realize how unstoppable you really are after I talked with you last time. And it is an honor to be in the same virtual room with you.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even pay her to say that. Well, why don't we start by you? Why don't we start a little bit by you telling me some about your life growing up and where you came from? I love to start with that because it certainly gives us places to go from there. So tell us about you.
Well, I grew up in southwestern Germany in a typical small suburb in a middle-class family. Parents were very science-oriented, so I grew up wanting to be a doctor, which was my passion and still is. So I was fortunate. I had the gifts to actually do it, and I was accepted to medical school, became a physician and a naturopath, had children early and married early. Wasn't a good idea, but at the time, well, what do I know as a young girl? So I got married and had boys and worked in, built up a family practice with him while I was still finishing my medical school and residency and helping him with his practice. I worked a lot, and eventually, while we were raising the boys together with my parents that gracefully moved next to us and helped us, I opened then my own practice as a dermatologist and allergist in Germany, and that was about 1995. So it's quite a while ago. So that's the early history. And then things happened because I worked too much, as you can imagine. I burned out and my back gave because something has to give. So I ended up in chronic pain, chronic back pain. And I felt forced to give up my office. I couldn't work. It's not pleasant as a doctor when the patients say, "Doctor, I think you need to go home and rest." So I went home and rested, and it didn't go better. I got very discouraged. I had 2 slip discs. Nothing helped. And I got depressed on top of it. And it was in the middle of our immigration process to Canada, which we had started because we did not want our teenage boys to have to serve in the then compulsory military in Germany. And so at the same place, my husband, my ex-husband, my former husband, I should say, he wasn't mentally stable either, like many doctors. He has 2 lives. So he ended up committing suicide. Oh. So I was left, a fresh widow, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, by myself with 2 teenage boys. And as you can imagine, I didn't know nobody. I wasn't feeling good myself. I was at one of my lowest points, and I actually went in my van and tried to commit suicide myself. And I'm grateful still today that I listened to a little inner voice in my belly that woke up then, that told me, no, you don't want to die, you want to help. And it was extremely hard, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, to actually drive myself to the emergency room and ask for help. I was extremely fortunate. Again, I was admitted to the psychiatric ward of the local hospital. And they kept me for 4 weeks. And everybody that knows our hospital system here in Canada, that's a long time.
It is. Well, tell me, Germany to Nova Scotia is certainly a long way.
In the world context, it's really not that far. It's about 5,000 miles in miles. But it is cultural. It was a difference. Right. I was prepared. I knew where I was going, I thought. It was different still. I learned about black flies and things like that I didn't know before. But I expected it to be a nice time, and it didn't start that way. But in the end, it was a very good move. And many things in life, aren't they like that? They start miserable. You think, oh my God, that's never going to work out. In the end, it does.
Yeah.
Because life
Well, and
works mysterious ways.
you have to go where you go and where you're led to go. Well, so you were in the psychiatric ward for 4 weeks. Now, how come there?
What do you mean where?
As opposed to a physical issue for pain. What took you to the psychiatric ward?
The fact that I tried to commit suicide.
Oh, so simply because of that.
Yeah, I was actually committed. So for a week, they said, even if I had wanted to leave, I couldn't. Mm-hmm. But then I said, okay, I'll stay. I want to get better. And actually, I got some help. I was put on medication, and I got transitioned into a day hospital group therapy program, which was very helpful. And they did address some of the back pain, not much, but it helped me a lot to adjust to the environment and deal with the death of my ex-husband, the new world, and everything that was going on.
So what did you discover from all of that?
I discovered a very important thing. And that is that even if you are extremely highly qualified and trained, deep down you're still just a regular person. And those people that were with me in the mental hospital, that I formerly may have looked down upon, schizophrenics, psychotic people, going through the hallways, mindlessly staring out of the only window of the ward all day, I was one of them. I'm no different, I realized. And that created a humility that hasn't left me since. And I realized then, and I still think that, we are all the same. My dear husband, my current husband, I'm with him for 25 years, he always says, we all eat the same, we all shit the same. So true.
So what did you do when you left the ward and became uncommitted?
When I left the ward, that's a good word, I became uncommitted. I went to the day hospital, I finished that, and then I basically struggled. I was on medication, I wasn't thinking clear, I didn't know what I wanted. I tried to reconnect with the medical community. It was very difficult here to get a license. I did the exams that they wanted me to do, I passed them, but I couldn't get a residency that they wanted because there was nothing part-time. And for somebody with chronic back pain, full-time residency was impossible. So there was no way. And they had told us on immigration, Canada doesn't need doctors. Ridiculous when you look at it now, but that's what they did. So I basically gave up. I said to myself, well, that's not going to work out. What do you do? So I did a little bit here, pottery. I didn't like it. Then I met my current husband, stroke of luck. Very interesting story. I have to tell it sometimes because it's so unlikely. He's very different. I mean, I have a university degree, postgraduate and all that. He didn't even finish high school. He can't read or write. And he is the smartest person I know. And I learned about how people with disabilities are sometimes treated in the system if their parents can't fight for them. And
what kind of disability does he have?
He has a learning disability.
Okay.
He just can't recognize the words. He can't sound them out.
And so it's different than dyslexia.
Yeah, it's maybe it's a class of dyslexia. And he tried several times, even as an adult, to learn to read. Nobody could help him because he must have one rare thing. He didn't really want to get tested because right now it doesn't bother him anymore. As a child, he was tossed aside, put in what they called the stupid class, and not educated. He was just pulled in the system. It's sad. He still ended up being a successful floor layer and being a foreman and memorizing all the relationships and all the substance that he had to know to do the job well. But it is, from my view, it is not right that he never got the support to teach him the basics.
Mhm.
that every child deserves. Is
So
it
he
better
had
now?
to.
I hope. Mhm.
So he had to learn a lot of that on his own.
Well, yes, he did. He guessed. He is very smart. His memory is way better than mine, and mine is excellent. He remembers everything. We went to Frankfurt the first time. He went by himself. I met him in Frankfurt to pick him up. So he managed it. He's very outgoing. And he met a person, talked to the person and said, I know you. You went with me to so-and-so elementary. We went to school together. We had Mr. So-and-so as a teacher. And that person looked at him and said, who are you? And then he introduced himself. Oh, yes, that was 40 years ago. He remembered a person in detail 40 years ago. I can't believe it. It's amazing.
Isn't that something? So how long have you guys been married now?
25 years.
Wow.
And
that's great.
He's a really good person. Not perfect, but neither am I. Come on.
It's a learning and growth experience.
Very much so. And I must really say, I respect everyone that tries their best with what they're given and what they have. And in my books, they're all equal, whether they have high education, make a lot of money, or none. It does not matter to a worth of a person. And
well, so you met him, and how did that help you?
Meeting him helped me in many ways. For one, he was one person that actually wanted me. At that point, I needed that. But that said, he not only that, he taught me how to speak regular English in a way that does not come over as, sometimes Germans come over as a little direct or blunt or sometimes even uncourteous. So he taught me colloquial English. He's extremely outgoing. At that point, I was extremely shy. So in this field of tension, I learned to be more outgoing, which was very beneficial. And whenever I felt miserable, he was there to be with me. And when he wasn't feeling good, I was there to be with him. And in that way, we lifted each other up. And at some point, when I was existing, but not thriving, as I said, I made the decision that, yeah, I was existing. I was so far okay. I was relatively comfortable, but I was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that started the point when I said to myself, listen, you know enough. What's missing is you have to actually do the work. You know what you should do, but you haven't really done it. So that's when I decided I want to do something with my life. And my passion, my whole life, was to help others get better in any way I can help them with. Be the catalyst for change to the better. That's what a good healer doctor does. A healer doctor never heals anybody. We are just catalysts. And the real healing work is done by the person in conjunction with their maker, whatever they believe that is. And I firmly believed always that, and I still do, even more than then. And so then I thought, what can I do? So I did a health coaching program. And I thought, okay, cool. Now everybody will want to work with me. Yeah, doesn't work that way. So I thought, oh, well, just put a website up. People will come. It doesn't work that way. So I discovered the principle of joyful failure. But at that point, it wasn't very joyful.
It's nice to be able to look back on it, but what happened?
But what happened is I actually went bankrupt because I thought, oh, all I have to do is put advertising out there, go with business coaches. People will discover how good I am. Yeah, Pustekuchen, as we say in German. What nonsense. That wasn't true. So after the bankruptcy, I calmed down. I said to myself, whatever, I'll downsize. I'm doing my thing. I go slow, one step after the other. And then I thought about what I really wanted to do. And I actually talked with another business coach that the government of Nova Scotia helped me to work with. And we together developed the principle of sparkles. And I said, yeah, I help people that are depressed to sparkle. And what that means is to live their best life full of passion, purpose, and meaning. So then I thought, how do I really do that? And I said, forever, what I'm really good at is I distill all the information out there on the internet and I distill it down and I find out what's important and necessary for the client right in front of me. So I called it a turnaround assessment, holistic health assessment. That's what I do, 5-dimensional. And I said, yeah, 5-dimensional health, 5-dimensional mental health, because it aligns with my story. Of course, I had to take additional courses as a lifelong learner and got certified in a few other things. So I can be the best catalyst for people that want to really recover and not just live with mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and others. And that's my passion. That's what I'm doing now.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing that now for 3-4 years. And it's really starting to come together. And the more I'm doing it, the more I learn about how to actually put it out there so people notice. Because how do people find you? I always thought, okay, you have a good program, you put it out there, people will come. And then I learned about online, you have to have traffic. And that's a hard thing to get. And you don't get it, you receive it. I think that's the secret.
Explain kind of what you mean by that, if you will.
I think it's kind of a little bit like when you want to catch a dog. When you run after it, it runs faster than you can. But when you hold the treat out, they come running. You have to have a good treat. So in online marketing, what that means is you have something that people want. So basically, I know how people find me. I'm on profiles like Psychology Today. They look me up, they see my video. If they resonate with me, they contact me, which is fine. Or they Google a term that I created content around, and hopefully they find my content. Some of it is by now on page 1 on Google. I'm surprised myself. And most of it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, some of it is word of mouth. But I really enjoy the technical aspect of solving riddles. I love to solve riddles of all kinds. This is what I thrive on. My favorite riddles are health riddles. My second favorite are making technology work for you.
What? Say again your favorite riddle?
My favorite riddle are to solve health-related riddles.
Health-related problems and issues.
Somebody comes with me with a symptom complex. Usually they have been labeled, say, 5 or 6 different illnesses. So I take that all, do my assessment, and distill it down and say, here is what's really going on. And that is 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 way a strategy, how to solve it and get you back to your optimal health. I love doing that. It's so rewarding, I should say. It's fun too.
Can you tell us a story about maybe, obviously without disclosing any information you shouldn't, but maybe a story about someone who brought you a riddle that you solved and how all that worked out?
Let me think of someone that I can imagine. Yeah, there was a family actually. And to me, it was actually the mother that contacted me about the daughter. And the daughter was supposedly depressed and anxious and had ADD and was on 3 different medications. And she was 14 and struggling in school. And when I looked at the whole family, things were not going right. The parents didn't really care about what the daughter wanted. They told her what she should do. And with 14, you have to transition. So, and they wanted to do it right so bad. And like with many families, all the people have to be addressed. I have a family program too, where I help people from my failures with parenting and my experience learning about it. And the first thing I always tell parents is, you try their best, that's good enough. You'll never be a perfect parent. And that alone is a relief when they realize other parents are not perfect either. They make mistakes. And the kids turn out fine anyway. My kids did. And I made many, many mistakes. That's number one. And then I looked at the daughter herself and what she was doing, what she was eating, what she was taking medication. She wasn't exercising. And she had some genetic abnormalities that predisposed her to the kinds of struggles that she was experiencing. And so I addressed those with certain types of supplements, and she got immediately better. Together with the parents, we were able, and herself, we were able to help her find out that it really was in her best interest to get better, because she wanted things that maybe wasn't what the parents wanted for her. So after we could align that, without going into too much details, we could help her to realize she wanted to live her life, not the life that her parents wanted her to live, but her life. And then she had the motivation to do the things she needed to do to get better. And I think it took her 2 years to get to a point where she was talking to her doctors and psychologists, because I'm not against all those things. And she was able to reduce most of the medication. She started exercising. She started eating much better. The whole family got healthier. That was wonderful.
How long did it take for her to be able to communicate with her parents and say, I really need to live my own life a little bit more?
It didn't take that long. I think it took 4 weeks between me talking to the parents, me talking to the daughter, and then they talking to each other, to realize that they both wanted the same thing, the best for the daughter. It was not just the same what the parents envisioned, what the daughter wanted, but there was middle ground. And that's so often the case.
Yeah.
And
so often parents have one perception, and as their children are growing up, they have another perception. But if we don't see communications, that tends to be a problem.
Oh yeah, communication is extremely important, whether it is in parenting or between partners. In any relationship, humans are communicators. And I'm still not the best, but I'm getting better. And I think that's a principle that everybody needs to pursue. Getting better at something every day. A little bit. And we all can do that. One thing today, get better at. Pick one and get better at it today.
It's all about growth and learning what you can do, and it oftentimes is living life one day at a time, but we need to live it.
Yeah, you're right. And I talk to people, and I volunteered on a palliative care unit, and I always thought about, why are people afraid of dying? Why they are afraid of death? And my answer is because they never lived. I really feel if somebody lives a full life, meaningful life for them, they don't need to be afraid to die.
Yeah, the big thing about dying is none of us have really tried it who are living. So we don't know what it will lead to. I say that many times when I talk to people who think they're experts about blindness. The biggest problem with blindness is that people haven't tried it.
That's a good point. I actually did. When I volunteered for the CNIB, they said, try it and put blindfolds on me. And I tell you, it's hard when you're used to navigating with the eyes.
Sure. And that's the big issue, is that even if you put a blindfold on for a few hours, and I've seen a number of organizations that try to say, we're going to show you what it's like to be blind. We'll blindfold you for a few hours. Or now we have these dining in the dark programs that oftentimes say, we're going to show you what it's like to be blind. We're going to blindfold you and you have to eat. But you don't get the training. And And so the result is you really don't know what it's like to be blind, and it often reinforces your fears. And I'm not saying that somebody should go off and try dying, because mostly we haven't figured out a way to come back from that so that you can report it.
That is true. But I really feel we don't know what's after. So why should we worry about it? If we live our life fully and to the best of our abilities, and at least try to be good people, I do not think even in any spiritual tradition, we don't have anything to fear.
Exactly. And it's something that we really need to deal with. We often fear so many things, and most of the things we fear, we don't have any control over anyway.
You're so right. And one of my mentors, they say, it's not the fear that paralyzes you. It is the avoidance of the situation that makes you feel fear. And that is very true, because if somebody is afraid of heights, it's of small spaces. It's an easier example to understand. It's not the fear that makes his life miserable. It's that he doesn't want to go with an elevator. He doesn't want to drive through a tunnel. He doesn't even want to go in a room where the doors are closed. Now, that is bad for your quality of life. But if you dare to go there and then experience the fear for, say, 20, 30 minutes, and sometimes you need help to get used to that, then you will notice the fear lets go. And there's good methods to tune it down and train your brain to feel less fear in those situations. But it's not the fear that ruins your life, the anxiety that ruins your life. It's avoiding the triggers.
Or confronting the triggers and learning that it's not what you thought it was.
Right. Especially if something like if you're afraid of poisonous snakes and you can't avoid them, and you do want to avoid them. But then, it's not that dangerous. The same if you're afraid of being struck by lightning. Come on, it's not that likely that you will.
But at the same time, there are things that you can do to lessen your chances of being struck by lightning. And that's what we really need to learn about. It's not so much the fear, it is learning what you can to make sure that you can deal with it when it comes along. So you can be in a thunderstorm with lots of lightning around you, but if you're standing out in the middle of an open field, that puts you in a whole different situation than if you're inside a building, or if you can't be inside a building next to a wall, as opposed to being next to a tree, which is a more likely place for you to be in danger. But if you are in a place that lessens your chance of being struck by lightning, that doesn't mean that you're afraid of lightning. That means that you are really looking at doing what you need to do to protect yourself as much as you can.
I love that idea because it is such a nice illustration of the truth of life. And you know that the serenity prayer, to the wisdom to know the difference between what we can change and what we can't change. And I mean, the nonsense would start when the thunderstorm is over and you are still frozen in fear on the floor, not daring to get up, even though the sun has started to shine again.
Yeah, and you have to learn to, it all is part of living life. You have to learn to live life. I had a roommate when I was studying physics who told me about a friend of his who, or maybe it was one of his professors, whose son was asking him about lightning because they were in a thunderstorm. Mm-hmm. And they were outside of their house, and he was explaining lightning and so on to his son. And they were very calm about it. And then a lightning bolt came down and struck maybe 10, 12 feet away from him. And he said, okay, this is what lightning is about. Now let's just go in the house. And they went in the house, and of course they were safe. But the fact is that you can't allow fear to overtake you there's no need for that, because when you do that, you blind yourself to being able to make decisions, and you forget how to think more clearly and strategically or appropriately in your life.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good point, and that's an important skill to learn. And I know you did exactly that when you were trapped in the, what was it, the 81st floor of the World Trade Building when it was burning?
The 78th, yeah.
78th?
And we're writing a book about that. The title, the working title, is A Guide Dog's Guide to Being Brave, but it's going to be all about learning, as I just say it, not to be blinded by fear, but learning how you can control fear and learning how you can deal with unexpected situations in your life. And we're excited about it.
I can't wait to see that book in print, and I will get a copy, because in this world situation that we are currently facing with all those pandemic and all the changes, many people are afraid of the future and they are fearing the worst, but we don't know what's going to happen. And we are missing a good way to deal with it.
Well, and that brings up a point. We are so surrounded by fear today, and so surrounded in so many ways, whether it's greatly so or not, by depression. Why is depression and why is fear so much around us today?
Well, my personal opinion is that it is very complex. Number one, the media has a very negative way of reporting world events because fear sells. And historically, when you look 10,000 years ago, our brain was evolved to react to fear as a priority, because we evolved to recognize fear right away and recognize events that could hurt us right away. So if we heard a rustle in the woods 10,000 years ago, it could have been the tiger that wanted to eat us. So high alert, look around. And if it was a tiger, we were prepared for fight or flight, the stress mode. And then normally, after we either fought the tiger, ran away, or discovered it wasn't a tiger, we went back to the cave at that point and rested and maybe had a meal when we had collected some food or an animal or whatever. And that was a parasympathetic or resting state. So we were able to switch from the fear or stress state to the resting state. And nowadays, the fear is so ubiquitous. If you pay attention to all the fear mongering all the time, we stay in a high stress state. Our brain stays totally in the stress state. The amygdala in the brain that recognizes the stress actually gets engraved with stress until we can't turn off the stress. And the stress hormones rage, and that causes chronic inflammation in the body. And that eventually wears us down and leads to depression. And that's one of the important factors in it. And that's why all the relaxation techniques, they're important, but it's not just it, but we need to learn to switch back and forth between those states. We need to be able to switch in that alert state and be stressed and get us stressed so we get used to it and learn how to deal with it. But then we have to also learn how to switch it off, go in a calm state, and activate our digestive system so we can eat our food and actually not end up with the stomach problems that are very common in people that are anxious and depressed.
Of course, we haven't talked about that tiger, and is there the possibility that the tiger is more apt to try to eat us because we're afraid of it, and we never try to explore making friends with the tiger or saying, I'm not afraid of you?
That's an idea. Depends. If it's a hungry tiger, I think...
if it's a hungry tiger and there's nothing else around, then you also need to say, go somewhere else. I'm not going to be your meal, and you're going to leave me alone, or you won't anymore be a part of the world.
That is very true. And it might not work for a real tiger, but if it's another human being that acts like the tiger, it usually is.
Right. I don't know. It may work for a real tiger, but it depends on the circumstances. But still, it all comes down to we hear often that a lot of animals can sense when we're afraid. Yeah. And when we show fear, they react to that.
They can smell it. I am convinced of that. And I know the dogs, for example, they can smell fear. And the smell is actually the only sense that is directly connected to the limbic system in the brain. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
It's not the eyes, it's not the ears, it's the smell. The smell bulbs go directly to the limbic system without being first looked at by the prefrontal cortex that has judgment and forethought in it.
You said something a while ago when you were telling the story about the family that you put the daughter on some supplements that helped. Tell me a little bit more about that, if you will.
I love supplements. I substituted my own psychiatric drugs over time, the supplements. But when I help people to do that, I always say never, ever go just off your psychiatric drugs. A big mistake. They cause serious withdrawal. You need to know what you do. You need to talk with your doctors or whatever. So that said, I myself put myself over 2 years off all medication, and instead I'm taking a supplement regimen, do exercises and all that, what I now recommend. It works very well. And my own psychiatrist can't believe it, but okay. And I found that a good collection of supplements of good quality together with reasonable nutrition can make a huge difference, not just in mental health, but also in general health. But it has to play together like a well-oiled orchestra. I like to compare it with an orchestra because when you look at an orchestra, the different instruments, they play together well. That's how nutrition and supplementation can go together. And that's why somebody, for example, that eats a very healthy diet needs different or less supplements than somebody that eats a very unhealthy diet. Or somebody that eats a diet high in processed food or high in toxic food, or somebody that has genetic inequities needs different supplements in different quantities. And I always say when you go to listen to a symphony, you don't just want to listen to the drummer and the first violinist. They wouldn't sound good. And that's why all the scientific studies that examine one single supplement show that they don't work. If you examine one supplement, it's like, I'm looking at the drummer, not a good symphony. Music doesn't work.
Why is it that we don't see more aspects of medicine talking more about this?
Well, that is quite obvious. There's big, very powerful corporate interest behind medicine and what we see in conventional medicine. Very powerful.
You're saying those drummers and violinists get a lot of money.
Yeah, certain not so well sounding symphonies.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
What got you? Oh, go ahead.
No, I personally call them the agroceutical industry, and they purposefully mislead the public about what they can do themselves to get healthy and well and what is really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they try actually to discredit supplements. They put fake studies out there. I can prove all that. I know it's true. But you won't hear that in the conventional media, sadly.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't. What got you started in learning more about supplements and dealing with them?
What got me started is my background in natural medicine and my interest in herbal medicine and biochemistry and general medicine. And in Germany, for example, I was able to be a medical doctor and a naturopath, and certain supplements, what we here call supplements, were accepted in conventional medicine. I could prescribe them on the German health system to my clients. For example, Saccharomyces boulardii, a probiotic yeast for diarrhea. It's highly effective. Or certain herbs like chamomile for inflammation, highly effective. Here, it's looked down upon. Why? I know why, but it doesn't make sense. So that's it. I got into it and I started to research it so much that I founded my sister website not long ago, Supplements for Mental Health, to educate the public even more about it, that there are options. I love it. That's what I like to do best.
It's pretty exciting that you're doing some very revolutionary or unique things, at least by the standards of what we look at maybe on this side of the ocean.
Thank you for that, Michael. I really try to make a difference, a positive difference for myself and for others. That's my purpose. That's all I do. That's why I am on this earth. And yes, I still have a private life. I still go for walks with my dog, but I spend a lot of my time doing research and finding out what really goes on and how I can help clients that are afflicted with all those illnesses even better.
Well, as you are working on all of this, and you're obviously being pretty successful with a variety of clients and so on, how can all of us do more to eliminate depression and just in general maybe become more mentally healthier?
I think the most important thing that anybody can do to improve their mental health is first to make a decision that they want to do so and that they're not content with the state they're in. And then to do their own research and really dig deep and find out, are there other options than what my conventional doctor tells me I have to do? He looked at me for 10 minutes and I left with a pill. I'm not satisfied. Are there other options? More likely than not, there are. And then find out what you think might be right. And you will discover there's lots of people like you, Michael, and I out there that work in the personal growth field. Some more or less specialized, some more or less good. And if you look, you will find something that resonates with you, and then try it. Do your research. Is that person you want to work with? Do they have a credible background? Some coaches, I know they have a background in marketing. Maybe it's not the best person to talk about your health, but there's others. There's good psychiatrists, integrative psychiatrists. Dr. Daniel Amen, I'm on his teaching team. He is one of them. His colleagues hate him. I don't know why. He's amazing in my books. Whatever. He does good work. He has an 80% success rate. That's one. But there's always options. So I always say, never give up. Look for your solution. Find your personal purpose and passion. Turn off social media and TV if you need to for a while, or limit it. An hour of news a day is more than a normal person should watch. It's enough. Instead, use your time to read some books. There's amazing inspirational books out there from modern authors, from old authors. If you really want to go into philosophy, Seneca said everything that I say, that all the coaches, all the philosophers, all the psychologists say already 2,000 years ago. It's still the same. Just do it. Do one thing today.
We don't spend collectively or individually enough time studying and thinking. I've talked about it many times here on the podcast. We don't spend much, if any, time at the end of the day performing some sort of introspection where we even look at our day and say, what went well, what didn't go well, but more important, how can I improve all of it? And listen to what our mind and our heart is telling us and then put it into practice. I've said in the past, we're our own worst critics. And that's probably not the way to put it. I think maybe a better way, as I've thought about it, is to say we're in the best position to really, if we do it, analyze and grow based on what we analyze about ourselves and what we do.
That's a good way to put it. I really like that. I always say to my clients, you are the expert for your body, mind, and spirit. I can be a catalyst. That's all I can do. I can give you recommendations, what I think might work, but it's up to you to evaluate it, decide if you want to try it, and then actually do it. I can help you to follow through. That's accountability. But if you decide you don't believe it, you don't want to do it, it's not for you, that's fine. Maybe somebody else resonates better. But do your research. And I'm a big fan. Every night I ask myself, what went well today? And if something is maybe didn't go well, I say, what can I do to make it better next time? What can I do to make tomorrow better for me and for others? And in the morning, same thing. I feel grateful. Gratefulness, gratitude is so important for mental health. Appreciate the little things. I wrote a blog about it. You can see it on Google. It is amazing. It's really helpful. It's what I do every day. I go around and appreciate things. Like yourself, you're a wonderful person. I appreciate you, Michael.
Part of the issue of what didn't go well, it seems to me, is not beating yourself up over it and going, oh, that didn't go well, that's horrible, and all of that sort of stuff. It happened. You no longer have control over the fact that it happened because it did. The issue is, and that's the step and the leap, I think, that oftentimes we don't take. Now, how do I keep that from happening again? Or what can I do to make that situation better in the future?
Yeah, and those are very important points. I mean, our mother already told us, don't cry over spilled milk. That's the same principle. But next time, maybe be more careful and don't spill it.
Don't spill it, yeah. And that's fair. That's the lesson to learn and figure out how not to spill the milk next time.
And many people don't do that. They just spill it over and over. And some people cry and cry and cry their whole life over it. And that is sad.
You know, we've been talking a lot about depression, and I've heard many times that depression is such an insidious thing and you don't even know you're depressed. What do you think about that?
I disagree with it. I think when you're depressed, you know that you don't feel good. Real depressed people feel sad. They have no interest in pursuing what they usually are interested in. They think of suicide. They don't want to do anything. They have no motivation. They have trouble getting out of bed. But many people are in the borderline. And maybe some people try to call that depressed. It's really not really depressed. It's a little bit not fully living. That's what I call existing, but not thriving. Many people are existing in this world. They're just there. They don't really live. They're just there and they're comfortable. They think that's how life should be and that's all life can be. And that's a sad situation.
Yeah. And they, again, it seems to me that they haven't looked for ways out of that. And does it mean they've given up?
It depends. One of my favorite answers. In some cases, they have given up or they have not had enough pain to affect change. Because to want to change, you have to be in pain. If you're not really in pain or you can't feel the pain because you're so over-medicated, why should you change? You don't feel the pain. And there's actually people in physical pain, it's very obvious that are born, they cannot feel pain. Those children die early because, for example, when we have appendicitis, it hurts and we want to change it. So we go to the doctor, have surgery. If a child that can't feel it has appendicitis, well, it bursts and they die. So it's important that we are able to feel the pain and then do something about it. And very seldom is there nothing we can do about it. And then maybe it's okay to medicate. Medicate for a short time. I'm against long-term psychiatric medication, except for certain exceptions. There's exceptions.
It's an interesting concept that you talk about, that you can't really affect change unless you feel the pain. And of course, pain can be physical or emotional or mental. And
Absolutely.
and what can we do either to start to teach ourselves more about recognizing that we have pain, or what can we do to start to teach others and help us all learn to recognize this premise of you're not going to have change until you feel some sort of pain?
That is a very hard thing to decide, because there's something that we call personal autonomy. That means everybody has to decide for themselves what they want to accept, what they're willing to accept for themselves. I'm not telling anybody else how they should live their life. But I found that if somebody is not in any kind of pain, they don't want to change, even though they don't necessarily feel happy. And pain comes in many variations. Like physical pain comes as slight pain or severe pain. Severe pain, you go right away to the emergency room. You broke an arm, for example, severe pain. Like slight pain, it may just be an itch. And the same scale you can apply to the mental realm or emotional realm. The slight pain would be you feel a sense of unease. Something is wrong. You can't really pinpoint it, but your life is not what you think it could be. And then there's severe pain. You are so dysfunctional and you can't do anything. You're severely depressed. You want to kill yourself. That is very severe emotional pain. There's everything in between. And some people, like in my case, I had to learn the hard way. I had not been trained as a child to recognize emotional pain. I had learned to cover it up with a facade, with just pretending to be happy, put a smile on my face. And then the pain had to be so bad that I nearly killed myself before I recognized, hey, I have to do something about it. And
which again goes. Go ahead.
I just said it's sad when then the only solution seems to be suicide. And I'm always saddened when a young person commits suicide. That's opportunity lost.
Yeah, it's of course it's sad when anyone does commit suicide, but again, that gets back to the question of how do we collectively start to teach people to recognize more that they're in pain rather than covering it up? Because it seems to me that probably a lot of time we just encourage, ignore it, it will pass.
I think the problem is often that people are encouraged, talk about mental health. And to a certain extent, I agree with that, but only to a certain extent. Because if there's no real support out there, what good is it? On the other hand, I feel we have to stop teaching our children that the world is a fairy tale and everything is good and you can be whatever you want to be. Don't teach them that nonsense. The world is darn hard. Get them used to it. Train them to learn to tolerate emotional hardship. Train them to learn emotional resilience. It's uncomfortable for parents to do that. It's uncomfortable for the children to experience it. But like any muscle that needs to be trained, our emotional muscle needs to be trained. It's easier in childhood than later.
Well, as you have been a coach and doing the things you have also been a speaker, you've delivered TED Talks, and you've also written some books. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, I've written a few books on Amazon, and my first book was Eating for Vibrant Health and Explosive Energy, and I'm just rewriting it, actually making it better. And I'm releasing it soon as Sparkle, Foods That Help You to Sparkle, What to Eat for Better Mental Health and Energy. And people can actually go to my website and pre-register for the course, because I released the book in pieces already in a course area, so I get feedback. And I wrote a book that I'm especially fond of. I call it My Daily Sparkle of Gratitude, a journal to brighten your day. It has inspirational quotes, writing prompts, questions in it to help you to develop a gratitude habit. And I find that is one of the main things that if you do it, will lead you to better understanding of mental health issues and to a better understanding of yourself and an appreciation of what can be and what life really is.
I love the concept of talking about learning to be mentally healthier in terms of that you want people to learn to sparkle. I think that's really great.
You know, where I got that concept from, that I was told my eyes sparkle. And I thought, yeah, that's really a sign that somebody is happy. When you talk to somebody that's happy and excited and doing something that they're passionate about, that's their purpose, fulfilling their purpose, you will see them, their eyes sparkle.
And I bet even a tiger would react positively to someone who truly sparkles.
Thank you, but I don't want to try that, to be honest.
Well, there you go. See, you're letting that fear come in, but I hear what you're saying.
I'm happy to try my tiger off a dog.
Well, there is that. Or try a tiger in a controlled experience, because they're not bad. But by the same
no animal is bad by nature. I don't say that. But they have to eat, and I don't want to be tiger food.
No, I wouldn't want to be tiger food either. I don't think that there's a need to do that. And they don't want to be our food. So we just need to learn how to get along and sparkle.
I like that. And as I always say, when several people sparkle together, we got fireworks.
We do. Exactly right.
And why not make the whole world a brilliant fireworks?
There you go. Would you please tell us a little bit about how people can reach out to you, learn more about what you do, where they can get your books, maybe hear some of your talks and so on? Because I'm sure that people are going to want to follow up on this. There will be people who will, where you have struck a chord today. And so how do people reach out?
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that opportunity. Well, of course, I have a website. It's docchristine.com, docchristine.com. And I also have a second one, supplementsformentalhealth.com. Either one, you will find me. Of course, you can Google my name. There's always something that comes up that shows something I've done on LinkedIn or the Chamber of Commerce, and you can go and find my website from there.
Spell your first and last name, if you would.
My first name is Christine, Chrisistine. My last name is Sauer, Sauer. A German name that actually means sour.
Well, but you're not a sour person. You sparkle.
Oh, no. I go by the German saying sour makes happy, or gay, or happy.
There you are. So people can reach out to you and contact you. And what's on your website? You mentioned courses, and what else?
Well, I just reorganized it so you can see a few really good pieces of content right on top. And I want to encourage you, whatever you're interested in. I love the weirdest way to start exercising, even if you hate it. How to train your brain to do that. It's funny and it's good and it works. That's how I started to go back to the gym, because I do not like to exercise. And I release a few videos about that too, because I like to have fun. I always think life without fun is dull. And how can we sparkle without fun?
There you go.
So
of
you'll
course,
find fun on my website, and some of my videos are really funny, like the one I put on my YouTube about my dog Rudy. Help, my dog is smarter and cuter than I, which is true.
Well, we'll have to go watch that. Of course, I can't resist being a guy who occasionally yields to temptation. Have you done anything to make sure that your website's accessible for persons with different kinds of disabilities, like blind people, looking at and hearing descriptions of videos, or even just finding labeled links and so on? Have you done anything with all of that?
That's actually something I'm working on currently to make that more accessible. All my big blog posts have audio embedded, so at least you can listen to them. But I have not made all the links accessible, so that's something that is on my list to do before the year ends. The website will be accessible, and there's a few good options, and I know you're with one of them.
Well, and I'd love to help with that. Of course, as you know, I work with Accessibility, and there are a lot of things that it can do. And if you'd like to explore that, I would be glad to help you. But mostly it's a matter of making the website available however you choose to do it. And that will be a great thing. So I'm glad you're working on that.
I absolutely do, because I want to do it. And my website is now getting more and more popular. So I definitely want to allow people that have different kinds of disabilities, not just blind people, hearing impaired or whatever,
yes,
to access it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, your website is DocChristine.com or supplementsformentalhealth.com, right?
That's correct. And I'm happy to talk to you. I have a free consultation. We can get connected, and then we can talk about more.
There you go, everyone. So reach out to Christine. Clearly a lot of insights, clearly a lot to learn. And we're very grateful and pleased that you consented to come on Unstoppable Mindsets, because I think what you're doing can help make a lot of people think and realize that they can be more unstoppable than they think they are.
Thank you so much, Michael. You are unstoppable yourself. You have proven that over and over, and I highly respect you for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And again, everyone, of course, if you'd like to reach out to me, we'd love to hear what you think, and we'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts. And you may know other people who ought to be guests. We met Christine through another podcast guest. So we're always glad to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out. My email address is Michael, MICHAELHI, @accessibe.com. You can go to our podcast webs page, which is www.michaelhingson.com. That's MICHAELHINGSON.com/podcast. So hope that you'll reach out, and please give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate the ratings and your thoughts, and we hope that you liked this and that you'll give us a 5-star rating to help us continue to do this and reach out to others and tell them about us. So one last time, Christine, thanks very much for being here. We're excited to have had the chance to do this, and we'll hopefully get a chance to meet and do some more of this. If you have other stories that you want to tell, let us know.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.